Hello, I'm Food Daniel. Here are my predictions for the IWFL and WFA playoff games to be played on June 27th. We'll start with the IWFL. Carolina Queens to Carolina Phoenix. These teams have played each other twice in the regular season, and both times the Carolina Phoenix won. I think the first game was 14-0 and the second was 28-0. Okay, when the Phoenix beat the Queens twice, there's no reason not to predict them to win a third time, so I say they will win a third time, and they'll win it by 3 or 4 touchdowns. Still, you got to feel good for the Queens. They made the playoffs this year when just a year or two ago, they were relegated to the Tier 3 division. It's good to see they've come back. They've come back. So be proud of yourself, Queens. But the Phoenix will win this one. New York Sharks to Pittsburgh Passion. The Passion aren't going to lose, period. Sharks will make a good game of it, though. I predict the Passion will win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Sacramento Sirens to Utah Falcons. I'd like to know why this is a road game for the Sacramento Sirens. I think the Sirens will win this game. I think they'll win it by 2 or 3 touchdowns. And I certainly hope so, because I'd like to see a playoff game this year that does not require me to drive 8 hours to get there. So bring it on home for me, Sirens. Yes. Madison Blaze to Houston Energy. I think the Energy will win this game for 2 key reasons. First, that's a long drive from Madison to Houston, and I think there are going to be plenty of Blaze players who won't be able to make the drive. And second, I think the Texas Heat, unless there's like a downpour or something, the Texas Heat will be something the Madison players just won't be ready for. I discovered 2 weeks ago, how much of a difference that can make. I'll get to that in a minute. But, if it's a typical summer day in Houston, this is going to be a long day for Madison. I predict this will be a gruesome win for Houston. Gruesome. I'd love to be wrong, though. I got to actually watch one of the Madison Blaze games this year when it was the game against the Minnesota Vixens that was televised online. I got to watch it, and it was a lot of fun, so I hope the Blaze are proud of themselves. They've had a great season, too. But Houston will win that one. Okay, WFA now. West Michigan Mayhem at the Boston Renegades. Gruesome win for the Renegades. Gruesome. Mayhem have had a good season, real good season. And they usually do have a good season. They're one of those teams that's lasted for a real long time. And they've never really embarrassed themselves. But, this year I'm afraid round 1 of the playoffs is as far as it goes, because travel that far to Boston ain't going to lose now. Okay, Cleveland Fusion at the Chicago Force. Well, of course, I expect the Force to win. But I don't think it's going to be gruesome. I think the Fusion are going to put up a good fight. I think the Force will win by 3 to 4 touchdowns. I'm starting to really like the Cleveland Fusion. I mean, they're a real good team. Even in their losses, they were impressive. I mean, they lost to Boston 24-20. And they lost to the increasingly powerful DC Divas 27-7. So, if they can hang with the Boston and DCs, they could probably hang with Chicago as well. Chicago will win, but Cleveland will keep it interesting. Okay, the Miami Fury at the DC Divas. Okay, I've said a couple times during the regular season that when the playoffs start, when a team from the Southeast, even the best teams from the Southeast, step outside of the Southeast, they get splattered all over the field. And I hate to say it, but I think that's going to happen here too. I expect DC to win this game by about 4 or 5 touchdowns. Miami, they typically are one of, if not the best team in the Southeast, but this DC team, this is probably the best DC team in, 6 or 7 years. So, DC will win this one. Okay, the most interesting game, I think, is in Florida. It's the Atlanta Phoenix at the Jacksonville Dixie Blues. These teams played each other twice in the regular season. The first one, Jacksonville won by 8 points, and the second one, Atlanta won by either 6 or 7 points. I can't remember. But there you go. 2 games, each one decided by a touchdown or less, each team winning 1 game. So to predict who's going to win, I'll be on the West Coast. I don't know who any of these players are, so I cannot predict. I have no idea who's going to win this game. And that's what you want. Suspense, right? if I could teleport to any game, this is the game I'd teleport to. So, I know it might be a bit of a blasphemy to not give a prediction when I'm making predictions. I'll do it anyway. I'm not going to predict a winner for this game because I have absolutely no idea who's going to win, but I will say it's going to be by a touchdown or less. Yes, indeed. It'll be the close game of the week in the women's football playoffs. Okay, to Texas now. We got 2 games in Texas. And both of them are against Missouri teams. It's Missouri versus Texas times 2. Here we go. St. Louis Slam at the Dallas Elite. Gruesome win for the Dallas Elite. Gruesome. You got to feel good about the St. Louis Slam, though. The St. Louis Slam, just like the Sacramento Sirens and the Pacific Warriors, they took all of last year off. And of course, whenever a team does that, you wonder if they're going to come back at all. But just like the Sacramento Sirens and Pacific Warriors, not only did they come back, they came back better than ever. So it's really a damn shame that their first playoff game happens to be a road game against Dallas. Oh, and speaking of teams that took a year off and come back better than ever, Dallas. The reason it doesn't surprise us is because, Dallas is always this good, so order is restored in the universe. But yeah, Dallas will have this one no problem. Okay, and the other Missouri versus Texas game, the Kansas City Titans at the Arlington Impact. Okay, the Arlington Impact, they were 6-2 this year, with both of their losses being gruesome losses to the Dallas Elite. A team like Dallas always just call itself the Dallas Gruesome. How about that, huh? While the Kansas City Titans, they were 5-3 in the regular season, with 2 humiliating losses to the Dallas Elite and the Chicago Force, and then 1 reasonably close loss to the St. Louis Slam. So, this isn't the Kansas City team that won the world title in 2009. This is a Kansas City team that's vulnerable. Whereas for Arlington, 2 bad losses to Dallas and wins over, markedly lesser teams than Kansas City. So this is also a tricky game to predict. I think most folks would probably predict Arlington to win this game. And I can certainly see why. But I'm going to predict an upset. I'm going to predict Kansas City's going to win this game. And I'll predict they'll win it by 2 touchdowns or less. I love predicting an upset because in semi-pro leagues, upsets are, really uncommon. So, it's fun. Okay, to the Northwest, it's the battle for SeaTac. It's the Tacoma Trauma at the Seattle Majestics. Well, that's about as suspenseful as I can make it sound. Seattle's going to win this game. I don't think anybody doubts it. Now, the Tacoma Trauma are the feel-good story of women's football this year. Founded 2 years ago, they had 2 straight winless seasons. This year, they not only get their first wins, they just smash their way through the regular season and straight into the playoffs. But the Seattle Majestics, they don't lose in the Pacific Northwest. Nope. If somebody's going to beat the Majestics, it's when the Majestics set foot outside of the Northwest. Seattle will win this game by about 3 to 4 touchdowns. I certainly hope the Majestics win because I didn't get to see the Majestics this year, and it would really suck if I went a full season without seeing the Majestics at least once. And finally, the Central Cal War Angels, the San Diego Surge. They played each other twice in the regular season. The first one in San Diego, the Surge splattered them all over the field. The second game, which was 2 weeks ago, a home game for the Central Cal War Angels, the War Angels won 23-14. I believe that victory, which I attended, was the big key factor in that victory was the Central Valley heat. It was well over 100 degrees, and the San Diego team simply wasn't ready for it. They simply weren't ready for it. They wilted. While the War Angels, being well used to it, were able to stay fresh. That's not going to be so this time. It's in San Diego, near the coast. Much more comfortable for the Surge players. And of course, there might be a little bit of roster attrition. I mean, it's only, what about a 5-hour drive from Fresno to San Diego, but still, There might be a couple players left behind. Hope not, though. But even with a reasonably full roster, even with a totally full roster, I don't expect the War Angels to beat the Surge twice in a row. I expect the Surge to win this game by 3 or 4 touchdowns. I think San Diego will win. And that completes my predictions for the IWFL and WFA playoff games to be played on June 27th. Thank you.